Okay, this is despicable. Absolutely shocking behaviour. Where is my streamer luck? We cannot have this on a Monday morning. Boys and girls, good morning. Rose, I'm sorry. Please don't hate me. Right, boys and girls, should we play some alpha? Should we get it on? Let's have a little looky, shall we? It's very dark. Where's the dark gone? There, flashbang. Too bright. It'll have to do. It'll have to do. Oh, alrighty. Got me coffee on the go. It looks like they have fixed the. It looks like they've fixed the realm that was offline all weekend, so I can actually have access to my materials again, and more importantly, my herba miner, who is the source of my materials when I need them. We will need them in order to level up our professions a touch, I believe. So let's log on to this realm specifically. Let's check all our materials are there. Let's check how many we've got. Oh, I probably need to put them in. Well, I need to record my video, don't I? What did I do? You killed me in Intro Wars. It's against the rules. One must not kill the streamer. Make me look bad. Okay, I'm joking. Right. Where should we start? I still have four major professions. Four major professions to look at: enchanting, blacksmithing, tailoring, and inscription. And there's four big ones still to get my first impressions at. Now, I'm not going to be able to get the best of impressions without being able to unlock the spec point, the knowledge point trees in them, but we can have a little bit of a peruse all the same. Let's focus on getting the characters there and getting them the professions, and we can figure it out as we go along. It's Monday. I'm slow. I have just jumped out the shower, so I'm at least a little bit alive. Coffee on the go. Is Remix to arrive on Wednesday? Yes, yeah, Remix is this week as well, which is also why a quick little alpha session Monday, Tuesday before we get into some Remix Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week, probably Saturday, Sunday as well, knowing me.
A radiant song.
Let's get this dude set up.
But we're unsure of its
Action bars. Some of you. What else am I going to be missing? I don't know. What do we get spec'd into us? Let's go rec, because spin to win's always just fun. Just give me starter build. I couldn't care less about figuring out where I put points. Oh, that's not much of a starter build, is it? That's not much of a starter build. Have they broken rec? Can I not do rec stuff? Do it manually then. I just want a simple suggested build so we can get going. We're not gonna be pew-pewing anything anyway. Just go Templar, I don't know, whatever. Sure. That'll do. I should put buttons on my bars, but I will fix it quickly by just doing this. Worry about that later. Right. Oh, we need a mount. Who should we use? What should we use? Big old scorpion. Scorpion dude can't fly. We got. What do we got? One nice flying mount. I'll do. Torvin Paladin, really? Yeah, I'm not really going to be playing or testing the Paladin much. It's just I'm replicating what my characters on retail are, so that I just remember who's on what character and stuff. It's just an organization thing. Where's the new zone? Oh, Silvermoon, there we go. The intro fighters, Rose. When we do starting soons, everybody bounces around and punches each other. You killed me. Which is not fair. Against the rules. Whoever beats the streamer gets timed out. Right, we need blacksmithing and we need enchanting. Enchanting is this side. Somewhere. I think. Tailoring, jewel crafting, enchanting. Boink. Boink.
Keep your wits about you.
Where is my notes? Let's take a little bit of a look at my notes. My notes are not very well flushed out. The Discord notes are actually looking much better, by the way. I've not told Discord we're live, have I? Good Monday morning. Ping the Discords. Shouted at when I forget to do that. Quite rightly. Yeah, the Discord is starting to look... Getting there. We're getting there. I've put a few more things into the Discord over the last few days. For those who may have missed. Midnight Alpha section is starting to get a little bit more full. Skinning, I put a bunch in for skinning yesterday. Also, my skinning video came out last night as well. Bunch of info regarding skinning to begin with. Some of the bits and pieces that I've found so far. The basics for herbalism mining are in here as well, with some little videos of the nodes and that sort of stuff. I've yet to do a video on herbalism mining. That will probably turn up today. The other professions have some basic... As I've gone through and as I've looked at them, there's some basic info and links to my first few videos where they're applicable as well. And I will hopefully over the next 48 hours get the rest of the professions done. I'm going to have to really just blast through them, I think, to get them all done before Remix, but we'll see, we'll see. Let's have a little look at enchanting then. Am I going to have access to the Spectre? I'm probably not, am I? Oh no, I do have access to the Spectre. To see it without having it. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Why then do I not have that unlocked with jewel crafting? That's really annoying. Right. Enchanting then. This is a big one for people. This is going to be a big one because of the explosion in characters with enchanting because of concentration alts. Later guys got to go swimming. The chickens swim. Oh, chicken farmer. I guess the farmer swims. Enjoy your swimming. Thank you for stopping by. With the explosion of concentration alts, focusing on enchanting for its quick and easy leveling up and for its quick profitability with concentration, I guess a lot of people care about this one, so probably a good place to start on a Monday morning. Ever Singing Dust appears to be our dust to start things off with. Recipe difficulty of 250. A basic ring enchant is likely then going to be 100 points plus. I think I've seen profession tools and accessories. Tools having 18 points on them, and accessories having 11 points on them, I think. So we're looking at 10, 22. Is that 40 again? Is that 40 again? Maybe they've just copied the same numbers over. 140. You're going to be 110 short. So you're going to need 110 from somewhere. Let's assume quality 2 dust equates for 40%. Okay. Shattering is a thing. Shatter a magical essence of midnight to utilize the power within for your enchanting. In the following effect when shattering. Empowered by a shattered magical essence of midnight, increasing resourcefulness, ingenuity, and multicraft whilst practicing midnight enchanting. It's going to be the 4 moats, right? Smash down whichever ends up being the cheapest moat anytime. Okay. We have the ability to craft our own rod again, which is handy. But of course, will probably require you to spec into it to be good enough to actually craft it yourself. Oh yeah, we get the basic one. The basic one is literally the first craft that we learn. Plus 8 midnight enchanting skill on a default basic one. How does that differ? Plus 18. And plus 18 and 1% less concentration. Okay, so copy paste a Rooney. Love that. No difference there. Dawn Crystals, Radiant Shards, Ever Singing Dust. They're the 3 we're going to care about. Quality? Yes, quality. Yes, quality. Yes, quality. Quality on crystals. I wonder how we're going to get those early days. That's always a fun experiment to try and find out. Where the hell do your quality 2 dawn crystals come from early days? If you ain't got epic shit to disenchant, you ain't getting crystals full stop. That's always a fun adventure. We'll figure that out later. Have the War Within tools been nerfed? I don't know. I don't have character copy, so I can't get my War Within tools to look. Dark Moon decks might be the same thing as in the War Within. We'll get to Inscription in a little bit and clarify that, but yeah, it could just very likely to be a copy-paste system. Still not going to mean that crystals will be particularly cheap if we're having to break down trinkets to get them. Is the wrap a vendor item? No, this will be made by, this is made by leatherworkers. This is a leatherworking intermediate. Okay. Wands are not implemented properly yet. At least endgame wands are not implemented properly yet. Basic, presumably going to be stats and balancing on these are all weird, but presumably your basic leveling wand. Consumables are in again. We're going to be making oils, weapon oils. Your healing abilities have a chance to resonate with the oil and shield your target, absorbing a bunch. Smuggler's Enchanted Edge. Coat your weapon with Smuggler's Enchanted Edge. This oil has a chance to activate whenever you deal damage, inflicting a bunch of arcane damage to the target. And Phoenix Oil. Increasing crit and strike. 2-hour duration on these, by the way. Were oils a 2-hour duration before? I don't remember them being a 2-hour duration. I also don't remember what duration they were, though, so... Using moats. Using more moats. Using yet more moats. For clarification, moats appear to be relatively zone-specific. Oh, it was 2 hours as well in the War Within. Okay. Thank you. Moats are pretty like zone specific. You can get them via herbalism, mining, or skinning, but they are zone specific right now. Alchemists can weave one into another with their transmutes, but this system is already feeling very Dragonflight-esque. For those who remember Dragonflight, Rousings and Awakens were basically the bottleneck reagents. We had Rousings and we had Awakens. We had different variations of them, but because they were more elemental, they were linked more to, like, nodes were randomly distributed. I think it was Awakened Order, wasn't it? That was the one that was the rarer of them all. It was like the 5th version. Moats is a more simplistic, toned-down version of what we had in Dragonflight. But I'm noticing a pattern that these moats are being used quite liberally. They're being used pretty much all over the place. Meaning there is a strong chance that we're in a world again where moats will be king. Like, they'll be the bottleneck material in terms of price for most crafts. And then your other materials that go into it is just kind of like, whatever. We got some boot enchants. Fast stride is increasing speed and stamina. Crystal, dust, and shards. So theoretically designed to be an endgame craft, I would assume, the fact that it uses crystals. Heavy on the moats again, as I said. Big player in Midnight already, these moats, I'm starting to feel. Crystal shard dust, crystal shard dust, crystal shard dust. The pattern is pretty standard. Boot enchants are not usually the big ones though. Chest enchants. Dust shards, crystals, more moats. Majestic materials. We spotted this when we looked at skinning. Was that yesterday? Skinning has evolved a little bit. My skinning video is on YouTube right now, by the way. I published it last night. Skinning has evolved the superb Beast Fang luring system a little bit to 3 different majestic items, but they presumably operate in the same way that the superb Beast Fang does. I'm going to guess. I've not been able to test this because I don't know where to put the lures yet, and I haven't done fishing enough to make the lures yet to test skinning thoroughly. But my suspicion is that these killing the summoned creature will probably be a daily thing again. It'll act like a rare, so it'll have a daily reset. A daily reset on dropping its loot anyway. You'll be able to summon it as many times as you want, but there just won't be reason to do it. They'll act like rares. But there's claws, there's fins, and there's hides. Yep, there we go. The chest enchants are going to pull from potentially daily cooldown skinning items, which is fun. Jargist with a 15. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Thank you very much for that. Hope you had a good weekend. Appreciate the support on a Monday morning. Maybe the most expensive material, like a tinderbox. I've not seen much of like delve-esque mats right now. There's been one item that I've found in a delve that I haven't found it used many places. I need to look on WowDB to see a more overview. But big emphasis on moats rather than... Remember in the War Within, it's level 80 and rare, so you had to be like level 73 in order to even loot it. Might want a max level to boost the kill if you're under-leveled. Yes, early days of skinning. Yes, you could technically kill it at less than you could technically loot it at less than 80, but you were probably gonna have a hard time killing the mob in the first place. Strength by 32, stamina by a bunch, intellect by 32, mana by 2%, agi by 32, speed by 12, primary stat by 36. Well, that's the one people will use then, isn't it? I suspect Mark of the World Soul will be the default go-to, because just flat stats is more useful for more classes on average. Aranir Enlightening as a Rothian Arms. This is probably indicating to how you have to spec in to get it. So yeah, Majestic Hides. Majestic Hides going into enchants. Majestic Hides going into endgame pieces of crafted gear. Majestic Hides also going into player housing items. Lots of rugs and decor stuff requires these. So skinning is looking quite juicy, potentially. 15 plus 10 plus 2. 25, 26, 27. 27 materials that can be affected by quality. I'm thinking concentration here. 27 times whatever the cost difference is okay. It is, though, substantially less than the War Within. Obviously, these are still chest enchants. They weren't always the best. Weapon enchants are the big boy ones, usually. Helm enchants is an interesting one. Are the fins from skinning or from fishing? My early suspicion is that there's 3 different versions of these. You lure, it's the luring system within skinning. So you have to create the lure, put it down, kill the beast. So I don't think fishing is going to be a thing. I just think the thing that you lure might be a seaworthy creature or something somewhere. I don't know. Haven't actually found the source of these materials yet. I'm just trying to figure out what they are and where they come from. Helm enchants is an interesting one though. We've not had these for a little while. Permanently enchant a helm armor with empowered blessings of speed. Also grants you 1 vigor whenever you defeat a foe whilst outdoors in midnight zones, once per 60 seconds. Considering they're getting rid of vigor as the blob thing that recharges, I wonder if that's true or not. Empowered Hex of Leeching, increasing leech by 44. Small, presumably meant to be a small heal on defeating a foe out in midnight zones. Helm of Empowered Rune of Avoidance. 30 avoidance grants you a burst of movement speed whenever you defeat a foe outdoors in a midnight zone once per 60 seconds. Very yin and yang, these, aren't they? You get a small burst of movement speed once a minute. It's kind of the Blizzard way, right? 1 vigor every time you defeat a foe every 60 seconds. I'm like, You just get excited about it, and then it's like, oh, it's once a minute. It's really not going to matter. And then there's the basic variants. Oh, and they were the good ones. Okay. And they were the good ones. There's more basic versions of them. Speed by 9. Leech by 28. Avoidance by 15. Cheaper variations of them. 250 recipe difficulty compared to 480. Sheesh. Okay. From 15 motes up to 20 motes. Early balancing probably still needs to be finished, maybe, possibly. But big on motes again. I'm telling you, we got a Dragonflight situation on our hands again, where base materials are going to be rock bottom prices. Absolutely rock bottom prices, and all the money's going to be in motes. Are the motes only from skinning or all gathering professions? Herbalism and mining has empowered nodes, and the relevant mote, so like the light mote comes from the light empowered ore and such and such. Each of the 4 zones is kind of home to one of the empowerments, e.g. one of the motes. Skinners have a thing that they can put down that gives them motes. So the 3 gathering professions are going to be the main source of these. It is yet to be determined if mobs are going to drop these. But as we do know that Blizzard has recently changed the rules on how frequently stuff drops from mobs, so it might not be too easy to farm them from mobs, even if they are able to be farmed from mobs. The main source is probably by design going to be herbalism and mining. And because they're almost region locked, you will be able to say, right, motes of primal energy are expensive. I will go to this zone and I will farm a bunch of them, and I will get a bunch of them in that zone. So you'll be able to sort of target farm them within a zone at least. So whatever the herb mining route or farm ends up being in each zone will designate how you go and get these as well. But they're used in all professions all over the place again. All over the place. There's only 4 different variations of them so far. I've not found like a 5th Omega mote or something. There might be something like that, I don't know. If there is, I haven't found it yet. Or at least I haven't found it being used anywhere. Ring enchants. Increasing critical strike effectiveness by 1%. Critical strike by a flat 17. Haste by 17. Burst by 17. Sensing a pattern. Mastery by 17. Mastery uses wild ones. Burst uses light ones. Haste also uses light ones. Crit requires energy ones. And then cheap early doors. Probably leveling. Yeah, enchanting 5, enchanting 25, enchanting 45. So these are your basic leveling ring enchants. Okay. Shoulder enchants. We're enchanting quite a variety of stuff again. Probably going to buy all of the basic mats and just gather the motes with a high mountain druid ult. Seems most reasonable for me. If you're buying materials, buy all of them. They're not free because you farm them, don't forget. If you're going to buy some of them, you might as well buy all of them. Do motes have quality? No. No. This is also going to massively nerf the value of concentration alts. Because moats are going to be... My suspicion is already that the price of the moat is going to be the thing that determines the profit or lack of profit in a lot of cases. I'm going to refer quite a lot back to Dragonflight, because this is a system that is most recently been seen in Dragonflight. Rousings and Awakened were used pretty much across all forms of crafting back in Dragonflight, and for the most part, they were the things that determined the value of most crafted goods. It meant that, or they were what is referred to as a bottleneck material, in terms of that the main materials that went into crafting something were relatively abundant and relatively cheap, and then it was the cost of the Awakened, back in Dragonflight at least, that was the lion's share of the cost of crafting something. They were Awakens, Rousings and Awakens were always quite expensive. Awakened Order was often in the region of like 500 gold. And if a craft, cost 700 gold to make it, 500 gold is, the lion's share of the cost there. So it becomes the bottleneck material. If you could get your Awakened Order cheap, you stood far more of a chance of making that crafted item profitably. The rest of the materials were just kind of, pretty easy to come by. I'm sensing a similar pattern in Midnight, where the value of these moats is going to be the linchpin to the entire system. And it makes sense, right? If you have any material in the game that is used in 25 different places, you've got 25 different people trying to buy it to craft their things. The supply of that, if the supply of that material is also then considered rare compared to base materials. So if you're a herber and miner, you fly out, you're picking up herbs, you're picking up ore. It's only on the rare nodes, the rare empowered nodes, where you get these moats, and then you have your overload ability to maybe try and get more of them when you can. It means that the moats are actually the rarer of the item. So you end up in a scenario where the moats end up getting really expensive because they're more abundant and rarer. You only get them at the same time as you get an abundance of the basic materials, so that pushes the basic materials down in price because they're just flooded. They're a byproduct of going out farming moats, technically. And you end up in a scenario where the moats end up being 3, 4, 5, 10 times the price of the base materials. Now that we can't hyperspawn farm the mobs for the moats, are we going to get enough moats to supply the market? Well, you're going to get them via skinning, herbalism, and mining, which will mean that there will be a mass abundance of the base raw materials there. Crafting is feeling very Dragonflight-esque right now. Very, very Dragonflight-esque. And because there is no quality on them, a moat is a moat. And that means, from the purpose of actually concentration crafting as well, you'll only add if you want to craft some shoulders, for example, at quality 2 materials are going to get you so far. But if you want to use just quality 1 materials here and use concentration, there might not be that much added value between the price of quality 1 and quality 2, because base materials are a byproduct of getting moats in the first place. They're abundant, and anything that's in abundance gets pushed down in price. So the reality is that the value of concentration might not be as high as what we've seen. Or at least it looks like Blizzard is trying to control it a touch more. Can I have Dracothis 2.0 and 12.1 maybe? Maybe, yeah. Why would the transmutation row in alchemy have ingenuity? I don't know. Good question. Fuck concentration, bring back thaumaturgy. I don't think it's coming back. Transmutation spec in alchemy gives you ingenuity. Why would they if motes have no quality? I've not been able to press the buttons to see actually what happens when you do with the transmutations. But yeah, you're right. If the motes don't have quality, then what's the value in It might be a quantity. Because you put, let's say you put 5 motes in, quality may have the quality may not necessarily give you quality out, but it might increase the yield. A quality 2 transmute may have a higher yield than a quality 1 transmute, meaning that you would be incentivized to quality 2 your transmutes in order to get more out of them. I can't remember the numbers without looking, but let's say you put 5 motes in and you just use quality 1 transmute, you might get 5 motes out, but of the new type. If you do a quality 2 transmute, you might get 10 motes out. So you you get more out than, that might be the way. And so ingenuity then is like, oh, well, if you use your concentration to do quality 2 transmutes to get a higher yield, not necessarily a higher quality, but a higher yield of output, ingenuity still has its place. An example of this would be Inscription in the War Within. When you're milling, you get different yield based on the material that you are. You can mill quality 1 herbs with a quality 2 guaranteed output, but you only get the yield. You get a smaller yield doing it that way because they're quality 1 herbs in the first place. If you use quality 2 herbs, you get an increased yield. Was there a reasonable way to tell if the thaumaturgy was profitable without using third-party resources? No. But I would also argue that there is not a way to tell if anything is profitable in the game without using third-party resources, if you assume that your brain and simple maths is a third-party resource. Because the game doesn't track costs of anything. The maths was, yes, more involved with thaumaturgy, but it's arguably no different to this, You have to install add-ons or have spreadsheets or do simple maths to determine if anything is profitable. But equally, you're right. The maths was more. There was more maths for sure. I feel they want us to spend concentration to get the best quality items, most likely even for consumables. Even they worded it like normal and higher quality. Yeah. Yeah, but obviously we look at concentration as how can we optimally spend it to extract the most gold from it in terms of profit. The reality is, yes, it's an easy way for people to not have to min-max their professions and get high-quality stuff. But the reality is that if there isn't some added value to it, That is because quality 1 or normal and higher quality end result things are virtually the same price anyway, which nullifies the need for it full stop if they're the same price anyway. Hope we get a new build this week. We do. The phases are going to be weekly on the alpha. It's going to be slightly difficult for me because Remix is also going to be out. But we've got... Well, that's not the right one. This one? Maybe. Yeah. Phase 2. Phase 2 of the alpha. We get to level from 83 up to 88. We get the Zulaman zone. Arguably, there's some more story and quests that go along with that. We get Den of Nalarak and Mazara Caverns as dungeons to test out. I've not tested out the dungeons this week. I've only done one of the delves. We get a couple more delves to test in phase 2 as well. It's slightly difficult at the moment because with only having access to Eversong Woods, I also then simultaneously don't have access to like 3 of the moats, which means even if I wanted to go out and farm some mats myself and do the legwork to try and level up some of these professions a bit, to try and see how things feel, I fundamentally can't because I don't have access to 3 zones that hold the ticket to 3 different moats. So there's a lot of crafts that I just physically couldn't make even if I wanted to. So I'm really hoping with phase 2 they add cheat vendors in for the professions where we can just get given materials for free to at least poke around and see what works and what doesn't. Because I don't really feel I can actually test. The way I described it the other day is the professions are in a kind of a look but don't touch mode. Without having access to materials, we can't really touch them to, you know, actually test things. So I'm hoping they put the cheat vendors in. Any interesting shoulder enchants? Increasing leech by a bunch. And then there's baby versions of them. Speed, avoidance, and leech. Weapon enchants. These are usually the big ones. Usually the big ones. Bunch of strength. Bunch of mastery. Bunch of haste. Flames of the Sindor Eye. Permanently enchant a weapon with Flames of the Sindor Eye, causing spells and abilities to sometimes ignite your target with Phoenix Fire. Phoenix Fire does a dot over 10 seconds, which when it detonates and deals additional damage split between all enemies within 12 yards. So, mini living bomb. Janala's precision. Precision of the Dragonhawk, increasing crit. So increase crit, increase haste, increase mastery, increase strength. And then are there mini versions of these? Or bleed. Granting a barrier to protect you for a bunch of damage. When the barrier is depleted, it erupts and deals damage split between nearby enemies. Healing spells to sometimes grant a target a barrier, absorbing a bunch of damage. And then verse by a bunch. What are the materials that go into these? Weirdly, weapon enchants are using significantly less motes. Only 5 per. In most cases. In fact, in all cases, only using 5 motes. Whereas things like shoulder enchants were using like 20. Which, based upon what I've previously said, that motes are likely to be the big expensive thing. Relative to the price of everything else. because you have to accidentally get everything else in order to get the moats, and moats are used everywhere. It's a supply and demand problem. Moats will be the expensive thing, everything else will be cheaper. Some people are panicking that Blizzard is shifting from pet battles. Most of the new pets do not have combat options, and you gather them by simply right-clicking on the map. Yeah, I'm with Wu on this. It looks like they're sunsetting the whole system. Meaning that what exists will still continue to exist, but it's basically getting the archaeology treatment. Have you mentioned how you get the moats? Yeah, predominantly herbing and mining. Your empowered nodes, which you can then overload on for some interesting mechanics, is where you get the moats from. Each zone, a moat is localized to a zone. So there's 4 main zones and in turn 4 different types of moats. So farming will need to be done in all 4 zones to supply a steady supply of all of the different variety of moats. Sell your battle pets quickly. I mean, I don't have as much data on this than Wu does, but I am relatively sure that most pet sales are for the purpose of collectors wanting a pet, not necessarily somebody looking to use it for a pet battle per se. Although you'll probably sell a lot of similar pets when like a family battler achievement or something comes out, and you know a team rises to the surface as the best team to use to kill a certain thing. A new player comes along and will buy those pets in that team to do that job. So I guess it's split, but you will probably see a decline in pet sales generally if they do sunset the system. Looks unbalanced. Some need 20 moats, others need 5. Well, it's because they are using they're double the amount of dawn crystals, which is often, although actually no, considering you've got 20, 10 and 2, 35, 10 and 2, but then only a fraction of the moats. Yeah, these numbers are obviously still very much open to being changed. I would imagine the weapon enchants will see a significant increase in the amount of moats that they probably use, or they'll jack up the value of everything else. Like a certain weapon enchant using 1 gem is pretty useless, to be honest. I wonder which one will be the new crystalline powder. Crystalline powder's only cheap because it's not really used particularly in many crafted items, and so it's just stacked up and up and up and up and up. The way that the moats work, I've seen there is often 4 different varieties of things that all have a moat attached to them, so they're all being used. Crystalline powder just wasn't really used all that much. That's why it got so cheap. Where you compare that to, what's it called, ley line residue, that then went into consumables, which meant there was a constant, steady flow of it being used. Which is why each season it went to the moon. Enchanting for our tools. What do we have options to do now? Perception increase for your gathering tools. Resourcefulness enchant. Finesse enchant. Multi-craft enchant. Multi-craft tool with multi-craft enchant. That's the first. Ingenuity, enchant, a deafness enchant. That's a big one though. That's a big one for sure. In a multicraft tool with multicraft enchant. Big. Big. Wow had just posted a Mr. GM and Ian interview on professions. Was that the interview? Was that not the interview Mr. GM did on his stream the other day? The one profession question, by the way, was one I asked. I was watching that live. This is probably Wowhead playing catch up because it's now Monday morning. Yeah, profession. Yeah, this was the. Yeah, this is them just reposting. We didn't learn anything from that. I can't remember exactly what my question was, but Ian just went off on his default. Oh, somebody said the word profession. I'll give my generic profession answer. Fourth pillar. Not quite. If you watch Mr. GM's VOD, you'll probably be able to pinpoint what the exact question was I asked. I can't really remember what it was. I think it was something along the lines of, is there any improvements to the progression or catch-up or something? And then, yeah, Ian just answered a different question. But what's your favourite colour? Toothpaste. Yeah, it was kind of a little bit like that. This is big. If they keep this in the game, multicraft enchant. Multicraft enchant basically means... And the interesting thing is, right, is this has probably been added as another one of these quote-unquote simplifications, because one of the biggest questions and the most frequent questions throughout the entire flipping expansion has been, like, what profession tool do I need? And the answer has pretty unanimously been, if it can multicraft, use multicraft. And then people are like, well, what enchant? And you've had to tell them, well, probably resourcefulness. Is there not a multicraft enchant? No. But now there is. So the rule is a lot more simplistic in that regard then. If it can multicraft, you're probably putting a multicraft tool together with a multicraft enchant on it. Done. Stack that multicraft as high as you can get it, because free shit is better than cheaper shit. They do that all the time. Answer the question that they wanted you to ask and not the one that was actually asked. Yeah, but I mean, at least profession's got another 30 seconds of limelight. And you also multicraft enchants now. No. No, still just resourcefulness. No. No multicraft on enchant still. Which means you will be stacking resourcefulness still. If you're mass producing, or presumably ingenuity if we can push it high enough again. Ingenuity with an ingenuity enchant. Is there an ingenuity enchant? Yeah. Ingenuity tool, ingenuity enchant, concentration. I think you could get 47% ingenuity, I think, in the War Within if you stacked everything right. Which meant that for concentration it was actually then the best option. Because resourcefulness was less impactful because you were only proccing resourcefulness on quality 2 components. Which was the reason you were using concentration in the first place. Illusions. Illusion of the Light Bloom. These are just going to be leveling fodder, aren't they? These are just leveling fodder. Nobody's going to care about those. All these come back again? Why are we getting these back again? This time now using moats to craft them. Well, they're going to be absolutely dead on arrival if they use moats, by the way. Absolutely dead on arrival. Why would they add all of those back in again? That make no sense. We did all of that in last expansion. Nobody cared, last expansion. First time craft fuel. Yeah. And then housing decor. Flipping hell. Dawn crystals, 10 alloys, 15 shards to make an animated Sindorite hammer. 5 dawn crystals. I mean, housing at least... Housing or decor items in general will be a good source for your quality 1 shit. Right? For all of the trash tier stuff. A good, while it won't necessarily be a super profitable thing, it does at least present many options and many places for you to use all of the quality 1 stuff. It's a bit of a funnel out, a sink, should we say, for all the quality 1 trash that's going to be knocking about. Especially if concentration doesn't really add all that much value. Because base material, I really am feeling that base materials are going to end up being very cheap, you know. All the money's going to be in these fucking moats. I can see it already. Okay. There's not huge amounts to scream home about regarding the profession as it stands. What I would say is the room for big profit to be had with concentration isn't really there. With only 2 qualities, my suspicion is quality 1 and quality... It depends actually what you have to do to get quality 2 materials, to whether there is much of a price differential between quality 1 and quality 2. But even ignoring that fact, there is significantly less materials that are being consumed in each enchant. Flipping 70 plus materials in a single enchant was the reason why concentration was so worthwhile using. So they're sort of passively balancing that out a little bit. Yeah, moats is empowered nodes, herbing and mining. TLDR. My herbalism and mining guide will come out later today. Once I've recorded it. The Discord has notes on herbing and mining already. We have herbing and mining info is all in the Discord already. So jump on the Discord if you haven't already. But yeah, got some info on moats here. And our VOD from a couple of days ago, we were doing herbing and mining most of the day. Let's look at spec trees then. Let's see if anything evolves, if our opinion changes based upon what we look at in here. Elevating equipment then. Power your ability to magically enhance equipment, improving your talents at creating permanent equipment enhancements. Flipping else. Flat skill for all enchants. Thalassian talents, Armani augments, and Haranir heightening. So they've that's probably when we look in here that, like, this weapon enchant is considered a Thalassian talent. This weapon enchant is considered an Armani augment. So they've split everything into 3 for the purpose of a spec tree. So you were going to have to spec in a certain direction. Choose to be good at very specific enchants. This is not too different to how they did it with within the War Within. What do the nodes do? Subspec, subspec, subspec. Crafting speed, ingenuity, and resourcefulness. If we choose to be good at Thalassian crafts, what does that actually give us the ability to do? You can use finishing reagents on the enchants. You can then... That's it. Silver Moon spell power. Learn to create the enchant rings. Silver Moon alacrity. Use 5% less concentration when concentrating on weapon, ring, and chest armor enchants. What are these? Helm, shoulder, and boot enchants. And then the profession tools within that sub-faction. No real flavour within them, other than you are just going to have to go in that direction if you want to be mass producing them. I'm going to assume these are just 3 basically copy-paste scenarios for the 3 different sub-factions. What we've got here, a ring enchant. Armani helms, shoulders and boots. Was these helms, shoulders and boots? Yeah, these are just all copy-paste, aren't they? So there's not just one tree you can go down to make profession tools either. You're going to have to split through all 3 different... You want to be good at just profession tools, for example. You've got 3 different directions you can go in. Learn to create enchant tool Sindori deafness. Learn to create enchant tool Armani resourcefulness. Learn to create enchant tool Haranir finesse. Ranks are still a thing. Yeah, there's 2 qualities, rank 1 and rank 2. Normal or high is what Blizzard are actually calling them now. Do we still have no idea if the housing system will be free to everybody after the expansion launch, even those accounts without Midnight? Yeah, it will be, yeah. Housing, although they've tagged it on to Midnight pretty aggressively, will be just a feature within the game for everybody. They're just using Midnight as a way to sell it and to sell copies of Midnight, giving people early access to it. I wonder if the plots will have the same price. I think we haven't looked at this in detail, and Blizzard have actually come out and said that for the purpose of testing, they've made everything really cheap. I would imagine most of the plots will be the same price, but I don't think that's going to be the cost prohibitive aspect of it. We've already kind of worked out that decor is going to be expensive. Like, you're going to be spending 5k here, 5k there, 10k here, 10k there, or 20k to add another room. Like, all of these little numbers add up to a lot of gold really quickly. Buying your plot is probably going to be cheap, you know, because your first hit's always free. They're going to make it very straightforward and very simple to get your shed up and running. But then if you actually want to build yourself a mansion, it's going to cost a bomb. Transitories, tonics, and tools. Improve the quality of your illusions, increasing their duration. Learn to create powerful magic wands and enchanting rods. Master formulas for consumable items, increasing their effectiveness. What's this tree do then? Perfect the art of temporary illusions, equipments, and mana oils, gaining 1 skill per point in the tree. Pick between transitories, tonics, or tools, and learn a subspec of your choice. Subspec of your choice. Subspec of your choice. Then eventually, crafting speed and a bit of resourcefulness boost. These don't specifically state that they're going to allow you to learn all of these yet. These literally, as it stands at the moment, just taught to you these appear. Hang on, I'll get back to the spectres in a minute. 5, 10s, 15, 20s. Where's the... Okay, that's interesting. The trainer doesn't teach you these by default. Yanara Sunglow. Is that you? No, you're not Yanara Sunglow. Who's Yanara Sunglow? Where have you gone? Who's hidden you? There's a separate trainer for enchanting. Has all of the Gleeful Glamour recipes. But is not by the default trainer. There's a second... There's a second area that I think is Horde specific down in the corner. That has a bunch of profession trainers. Are you going to be... Up here, maybe. This is the Horde-only zone. Herbalism, alchemy, tailoring, chanting, magistrix, summon or other. No, you're not who I'm looking for either. You're also not who I'm looking for. Who am I looking for? What was her name again? I'm looking for Yanara Sunglow. Here, maybe? There is potentially a very quick and easy way to level enchanting via these Gleefuls. But it might not necessarily be face value level obvious. 50. You ever need more than 50 skill? 40, 55, 55, 5, 25. Okay, we need to find this Yanara Sunglow class. Why no slash target? Because I haven't. What was her name? Spell it right. Oh shit. Is blacksmith thing the most knowledge points needed? I've not counted them all up. I've not looked at blacksmithing yet though, but probably. Okay, well if this lass is in here somewhere, we'll find her, but... on... That was probably not how you spell it, was it? Ah, maybe it was. Inara Sunglow. What did I type? Proprietress of Positively Genchantring? What the hell? Well, if she's there somewhere. She's around here somewhere. But as it currently stands, you could probably go to her instead. And if you wanted to very quickly level enchanting, you could just bang out a bunch of these and have done with the entire flipping system by the looks of things. My suspicion is that it won't go live this way. If it does, it's kind of funny. She's not where you'd think she'd be. Well, if somebody finds it, let me know. I still haven't really got my bearings in this place as it stands anyway. She'll be lurking somewhere. Okay. Well, either way. We got gleeful glamours in one direction, oils in the other. Down into outstanding outfits. Enchanting rods, combat wands, the likes. And then we split into either making wands for other people or making crafting rods. Ruined brilliant silver rod. Presumably the last one gives us... No? Where do we get the epic rod from then? Where do we get... Ah, okay. Then we buy that from Lorendor. Sure. Disenchanting tree. Master your general disenchanting, 1 skill per point. Subspec, subspec, subspec. Master your fundamental rituals, increasing skill by 20 when disenchanting uncommon midnight equipment. Dust shard crystals. So uncommon equipment is also a dust. That's a boost to getting dust. There's also a node that boosts your ability to get dust. Skill when disenchanting uncommon equipment. You have a chance to create more ever-singing dust. Your chances of creating additional ever-singing dust when disenchanting uncommon is increased. Plus more skill in doing it. This also, once again, feels very copy-paste. No changes here, I would suspect. Meaning that those who want any chance of getting quality 2 crystals in the early season are going to be needing to put points in here to do so. You have a chance to extract some of Midnight's native magical essences when disenchanting epic Midnight equipment. That's going to be a source for motes. Is that? No. So for these two, for disenchanting greens and for disenchanting blues, you just get your green and your blue. You just get your dust and your shards. It's only when you disenchant epics where you'll also get motes by the looks of things. Which if we, you know, do the same thing, disenchant Darkmoon decks, if they copy that system over, we'll be doing a lot of that. But testing will need to be done to see just how potent this is, how easy it is to get quality 2 mats. That's a beta kind of test thing. Is the layout of the city the same as in retail? Not really. I don't think. Or at least if it's similar, I don't remember it being this way. Does jewel crafting still make the glass vials? Yes. Yes. With there only being 2 qualities, you'll probably be able to buy normal quality off a vendor still, but yes, jewel crafters will be able to make high quality vials if it's needed. Specialize in shattering the magical essences of Midnight, gleaning fleeting but increasingly potent crafting bonuses from the magic within. Your studies will also benefit your concentration. Learn to shatter magical essences native to Midnight areas, temporarily empowering your resourcefulness, multicraft ingenuity. Consume 2% less concentration when concentrating on Midnight formulas. So, with 30 points in that, you'll gain a bunch of ingenuity. Shattered essence lasts an additional 5 minutes. And an additional 5 minutes once again. Responsible resources. This is your resourcefulness tree. I'm going to assume then that this is your ingenuity tree. Genius breakthroughs refund an additional 5%. An additional 5%, so that's 10%, 15%, 20%, plus the 30 points in the node. Genius breakthroughs refund an additional 5% of concentration. Now, the node gives you ingenuity. The node doesn't give you percentage back. Does this mean that we start at 50 and can only go as high as 70 this time? 50 plus 5 plus 10 plus 15 plus 20. Are we is there anything in here? Consume 2% less concentration. Consume 5% less. 3% less. 2% less. That's another 10%. We might not be seeing 100% refund with enchanting this time round. Stacking ingenuity was valuable to do in the War Within because you could, one, get a 100% refund, meaning a proc gave you a completely second full ability to press a button. We might not be looking at, if my maths is correct on this, any more than a maximum 80% refund. Unless there's other... this is just all resourcefulness. This one's likely to be multi-craft. Yeah, in terms of... yeah, doesn't look like mathematically we're going to get 100% refunds with enchanting anymore either. Tools add a bit. That's a consumption. Using less though, that's not a refund. The only refund we get when ingenuity procs, because 1% less here and a few percent less here is going to reduce this initial number. It's the 100% refund that was quite powerful for us, because it meant that any that was used was completely returned to you for you to freely use it all again. 80% is better than 50%, but it's still less than 100%. This is my point, right? You were able to chain proc. With 100% refund on concentration, you were able to chain proc, and this meant that when you did just get lucky, you would, instead of making like 5 to 8 enchants, you could make as many as like 15 plus, because you just keep getting procs and then you'd keep be able to using it again. Dropping down to 80% is still great, but it still means you need to proc at least twice to then be able to do it once more. And depending on how much concentration you're consuming each time anyway, yeah. Dropping 20% doesn't sound like a lot, but in actually the grand scheme of things, it's quite the nerf from 100. But otherwise, this tree... Otherwise, these trees are all exactly what we're used to with enchanting. You got your odds and ends tree. You've got your actual enchants tree. You've got a tree that you're going to put points into if you're doing any disenchanting. And you've got your resourcefulness node that will be default pretty much for everybody. You've got your concentration node if you are a concentration alt, and you've got your multi-craft node if you happen to be making inks. Not inks, sorry, oils. So, for the most part, it's exactly the same. For the most part, it's exactly the same. Other than, I would genuinely say, overall, it's quite nerfed to what it is in the War Within. In a few different subtle areas. Potentially not 100% refund on concentration usage. Significantly less materials needed per enchant. 35 dust is still quite high though, I will give you that. 35, 45 plus 2 crystals. There's still nearly 50 mats, but it's not as much. They have toned it down some. But my theory is also that these moats are going to play a significant bigger factor in the prices of things. We also don't know just how much concentration is going to need to be consumed. Recipe difficulty on weapon enchants is like 500 or 80 right now. These are probably not balanced, but with the assumption that quality 1 materials give you a 25% of that, let's say that's 125, that means you need to make up, still need to find, give or take, 100, 300-ish, 300 plus, 100, 200-ish. Okay. You might be still using a couple of hundred concentration. If you choose to use quality 2 materials and concentration, you're still probably looking at a couple of hundred concentration, meaning maximum 4 button presses. 4 button presses with only an 80% refund might mean if you're even remotely able to stack ingenuity, you might get 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 procs in total, not 17 or 15 or 12 that we've been seeing. Yeah, it's toned down. It all seems that they've looked at toning enchanting down. It might not be, and in fact, it almost certainly won't be the powerhouse for concentration that it's been. At least, you know, early looks. Not going to quite be the powerhouse it once was. Are we getting those stupid chaos flasks back? There's only there's 5 flasks. It's in the alchemy video. There's only 5 flasks, or secondary stat ones and 1 healing one. There isn't a big chaos flask style thing. Do we know if the concentration recharge rate is the same or have they tweaked it? It's the same. Some of the professions now have these appendixes of info. And so we can see concentration here. It actually states somewhere that it's like 250 a day or something. Concentration can be used to guarantee higher quality when crafting, regenerates at 250 points over each day, and is partly refunded when a craft triggers your ingenuity. So, a 30-second TLDR to enchanting is that if you've used it in the War Within, you'll know exactly what you're doing. If you haven't, you are looking at speccing in arguably one of 3 directions. Early doors, you are going to have to very much cherry pick which enchants that you become good at crafting. And you can do all of that within your main enchanting tree, which is where a lot of people will spend most of their points. But I would say it becomes pretty much default for everybody to at least put some points in Spellbound Shatterer to begin with. Simply because resourcefulness, even if you go enchanting, you're going to want as much resourcefulness as you can get your hands on. So 30 points in here becomes very quickly almost mandatory. What do we got in here? Interestingly, you're only going to need to put 5 points in here, 30 points in there. 35 points becomes mandatory for enchant crafters, just to get your resourcefulness. Then you put as many points in here as you need to get the enchants that you want. You go oils, You're going to go in the middle tree. You're going to spec into oils. It's going to be relatively cheap and easy to do. Then your option is going to require you to go in both directions. You're going to want resourcefulness, sure, but you're also going to want multi-craft, which will mean you have to put a bunch more points. 15 in here, 30 in here, 30 in here, 60, 75, or you go oils, 100 plus. The disenchanting tree is the same scenario. You're going to have to maybe choose to be a prolific disenchanter and spend a lot of points in here. And if there's craftable epics somehow, Crystal Collector could be very valuable early on. Can I do disenchanting with tailored braces? Probably, yeah. If tailor braces becomes a thing. I've not looked at tailoring yet. Aranir playable? No. Nope. I don't think so. Are they playable at all in the beta? We don't get to test the zone until phase 3. Doesn't say. Okay. Well, there's enchanting then. I'll make some notes on that in a little bit, and I'll put some details together on that. Let me go look at blacksmithing on this toon as well. That's the other profession I usually have on my paladin. Where's blacksmithing? Probably near mining. Up here, look. I'll tell you what I do need, though, to do this. I think it's monster o'clock. I've just realised I've left my monster in the house. I'm going to have to go get it. Right, I'm going to take a quick break for 2 minutes, boys and girls. Entertain yourselves for a couple. I've got to go grab a drink. I'll be back with you in 2. Oh my lord. It is absolutely belting it down outside. It's nasty weather. Ick. Many a ick. Right. Okay. Blacksmithing. What are we saying? What are we saying? Have a little looky. Ah, damn, I can't look at the flipping spec trees until I've got 25 points in it. Christ. Okay, we might not be able to dive all that deep into blacksmithing then. Why do they do this with some professions? Okay. Copper ingots. No surprises there. Take some copper ore, smash it together with some vendor dust. Vendor flux. Stones are a thing again. Increase attack power by 3. How exciting. All the numbers seem so uninspiring because we've had the squish. Attack power by 3. Woo! It's like vanilla again. Okay, sure. What are our other alloys then? We have the dazzling alloy and a gloaming alloy. Silver and some copper ingots in the first place. Ooh! Staggered as well. Sure. So copper makes the basic ones. Umbriel and silver are arguably meant to be the rarer materials. Although I would state that I've not really found all that much difference in supply between copper, tin, and the others, but sure. No big boy alloy? No big boy alloy. Gloaming, dazzling, and refulgent copper ingots. Okay. Armor. We're presumably going to have the blood tempered set. This is going to be your leveling set. Utilized whilst leveling the profession predominantly. Standard copper ingots, a bit of vendor mats. Very, very simple, very, very basic. Nothing but basic ingots going into these. What did we say ingots take? Ingots take nothing but ore and some vendor flux. No use of moats, actually, anywhere here so far. But your leveling set, your early days crafting set, none of it really taking a huge amount of anything. In fact, all of this is made with nothing but copper ore and vendor stuff. This is going to be real cheap, real easy to craft, unless they add more to it. We then have the Spellbreaker set, which I presume is going to be our endgame set that comes from our spec tree, which we can't see right now, and none of these recipes have been implemented yet. But this is going to be our endgame crafted stuff. Murder Row set. We've seen a few pieces with this Murder Row name before. Namely in leatherworking, I think. Increase avoidance by a bunch. Add a bleed to your target. A dagger. Why is a one-handed dagger in the armor section? And a shield. The light protects. There's a chance when you're attacked to gain an absorb shield. Should the shield be breached before it expired, it does a bunch of damage. Okay. These haven't been implemented yet. I wonder if for recrafting gear you'll need a specific profession. Well, I have a suspicion that they're getting rid of recrafting. Recrafting, I have not seen recrafting listed anywhere at all. The more professions I look at, the more I am starting to believe that they might be getting rid of recrafting entirely. Either they're getting rid of it entirely. There's only 3 options, isn't there, really? They're getting rid of it entirely. And they have got rid of it entirely. It needs a full overhaul rework because we now only have 2 materials to consider. And so they're doing that and it hasn't been implemented yet. Well, that's the only 2 options, isn't it, really? Maybe we don't have to recraft because there's less qualities. There isn't with gear. Still 5 qualities with gear. And part of recrafting was allowing you to swap out your missives, allowing you to swap out the embellishments, all of this sort of business. It's risky to take it out completely. But like I said, because they have dropped the material qualities down to 2, they're going to need to recode and rebuild the recraft system to do that, or at least make significant adjustments to it, because you've got to remember that gear crafting the way the recraft system works is it knows what materials were used when you crafted that item, and it was mighty frustrating and mighty confusing for lots of players that went to get a piece of gear crafted many months after they'd crafted it initially, only to then confuse the crafter to why the crafter couldn't craft it at the rank that they were expecting to be able to, and then for the 2 parties to between themselves figure out that, oh shit, wait, hang on, I probably crafted this with lower quality mats back in the day because the high quality mats were expensive. Now I'm getting screwed over because of that. And then you had to recraft it a few times with higher grade materials to watermark the quality. It was just bad. Like, it was just completely confusing and completely bad. I would happily see them completely remove it from the game. But it does then cause the issue that crafting your piece of gear initially, especially when sparks are considered scarce and soul-bound and in limited supply, that does mean you absolutely have to get your piece of crafted gear right first time. And then what do you do when we go next season? Instead of recrafting your last season's piece of gear, you're then going to have to make a complete new one. Buying your missives again, buying your embellishment again. And so on and so on. Just add an NPC that destroys the item and rewards the spark back. It's still a nerf to the system in general, though, because, like I mentioned, there's sure getting your spark back is a good thing, but it does mean that you're not retaining your missives, you're not retaining your gem sockets, you're not retaining your embellishments. You would need to buy all of that again. Now, as crafters, sure, sell more of that shit, but from a player perspective, recrafting was a convenient way to not have to incur the entire cost of a new piece of crafted gear. But it will be more simplistic, you know, in the name of simplicity. Because we know the recrafting system was kind of convoluted and it had all of these weird and wacky rules to it, I also think that not many people particularly used it because of that as well. But the people that did use it saved a fair amount of gold by using it. You recraft your last season piece of gear, you save half of the cost of doing so, and you get to maintain the embellishment, the you know, all of the bits and pieces that were already on that piece of gear. People who get back a rank 3 public order with a spark will be mad if there's no recrafting. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, indeed. So we don't know what they're doing with that system, but they're either going to have to completely rebuild it and add it back to the game again in its previous form, or they've just axed it entirely and they're going to have to figure out something else. Hey, here's a crazy idea. Put quality on public orders. We all know everybody only wants quality 5 anyway. And then let people who don't put sufficient tip just not get their gear crafted. It's simple. Okay, weapons. Big old list of weapons here. What we saying? Dawn-forged weapon sets are going to be fist weapon, two-handed mace, one-hand sword, one-hand axe, one-hand dagger, two-hand axe, one-hand dagger. Once again, just basic copper ingots and just flux. These will be outrageously cheap, borderline free, but are predominantly used for the purpose of leveling up your professions. We've got 40, 35, 25, 25, 20, 20, 20. Yeah, these will be used to level up your profession initially. Spellbaker set is then going to be your end game crafted stuff, where we've got warglaves, we've got one-handed mace, we've got one-handed sword. Magister's set, two-hand mace, one-hand dagger, one-hand sword, one-hand axe, bar strider, fist weapon, dagger, axe, one hand, then Blood Knight set, two-handed sword, two-handed mace, two-handed polearm, two-handed axe. 1, 2, 3, 4 different namings of these. I wonder if these are then gonna link to the 4 different zones in some way as well. A big old list of profession gear again. The Thalassian set is your basic green profession gear. Blacksmithing feels very not done yet, if that makes sense. Admittedly, anything that's endgame we can't see the materials for because they've not been implemented yet, so we don't know what's going on there. But profession gear is also just copper ingots and flux. Sunforged blacksmith hammer, Kazalgar, core alloys. Yeah, this is all just not this is all just not implemented properly yet. Where's your disenchant fodder then? What's the cheapest one? None of them are really that cheap. 5 copper ingots, 5 copper ingots, 6 copper ingots, 5 copper ingots, 6 copper ingots. Like I said, I don't suspect any of this is balanced, but Leatherworkers tool sets are probably going to be the cheapest for the purpose of disenchanting shit. Via blacksmithing at least, anyway. Gazillion profession points needed for blacksmithing, I guess. Yeah, I can't check specs yet. I need to, at least in alpha, I'd need to level it to 25 before I can view them. Means I need to spend a few more hours doing some farming. Don't know if you thought about it, but hear me out. Now that we can use concentration on skill 1 with no requirements, can we just shuffle all of the professions deplete out concentration on every 4 days. Well, in theory, yes. But the reality behind that is it's still probably not very viable to do, because you're at the very least going to incur the cost of leveling the profession every 4 days, because otherwise you don't have the recipes. Because a level 1 blacksmith has access to copper ingots. That's it. Now, sure, if making a quality 2 copper ingot or a few of them is worth the money, maybe, but you do if it's learnt via the spec tree. Yeah, that's true. If you do enough on the profession in the first place to unlock a recipe via the spec tree, then in that scenario, yes. It'd be an interesting thought experiment. You clearly watch K-Chak. It'd be an interesting thought experiment to poke around and see what recipes and stuff qualify for that kind of shenanigans. But I'm also slowly but surely not being overly convinced that concentration is going to really bring too much value. We often see, from one profession to another, the mindset of players tends to be, this worked really well in this expansion, I'm going to do that, but just more in the next expansion. And nearly every single time, it's either been heavily nerfed by the time we get into the next expansion, or because so many people had the same idea, it's passively nerfed just by the fact 20 times as many people end up doing it. Which is why I am looking at the professions with a rough sort of concentration alt mindset. But I am more and more, as I look through them, more and more convinced that concentration is going to be a bit of a nothing burger from a goal-making perspective. There will still be some gold, but it will not be as lucrative as what we've seen with enchanting alts this expansion. The barrier to entry is lower, but with only 2 qualities in place, the likelihood is that, and I've also sort of noticed very heavily that moats are going to have a huge impact in the crafting cost of things, because the moats are not subject to quality in the first place, and they're used flipping everywhere. And they're rare compared to the base materials. 3 things that will fundamentally make the crafting system feel very much like Dragonflight, where Awakens was basically everything. Base materials were cheap. Awakens contributed 70% of the crafting cost most of the time. If you play Dragonflight, moats are the same as Awakened. Fundamentally, they come from herbing and mining. They come from overloading nodes. If you need rank 2 mats for craft at best quality, and the delta in price between rank 1 and rank 2 is big enough, then there will always be profit in concentration crafting no matter what. True. Yes. That is reason number 1 to why concentration crafting works. But the reason why enchanting is the favoured one is because enchanting takes that difference between quality 1 and quality 2 crafting cost and multiplies it by like 70 because it uses so many materials per craft. If you take that exact same theory and you look at something like tailoring, where your options to use tailoring in the War Within for concentration was like spell threads. Yes, there is a difference in price between quality 2 and quality 3 materials, but when you only use 5, maybe 10 materials per craft, you're not multiplying that difference by a big enough number to really make it worthwhile. And so even though that statement is still true, it's just as true for tailoring as it is for enchanting, but look at how much more profit you're able to make with enchanting rather than tailoring this expansion. Enchanting worked so very well in the War Within because it was a 3-factor system. It was like the stars aligned with enchanting. The profession was very easy to set up, was not subject to the same catch-up mechanics for knowledge points, so you could blast enchanting to wherever you needed to get it to very quickly. Secondly, it used an absolute metric ton of materials in some of the biggest and best crafts, so it had the largest, should we say, multiplier. And there was quite frequently a more significant difference between quality 2 and quality 3 material price because of how enchanting mats are produced in the first place. So enchanting was good in the War Within because it was the stars aligning on 3 separate things that all benefited concentration. Those things may not necessarily all be as prominent when we go into Midnight. You might find that all professions feel a little bit sort of, you know, if you take something that's middle of the run, concentration-esque alt from the War Within, you're probably more likely to find most professions are on that sort of level. On top of the fact that how many people are going to spin up 50 to 100 alts this time round very quickly because the barrier to entry to pressing the button is less, because they got some success out of it in the War Within. Referring back to my previous statement of what happens in one expansion tends not to translate too well into whatever the new expansion is either. I think the sleeper will be transmuting. Got to work out which motes are going to be unused. It also depends if those transmutes end up being on a cooldown. Farming motes better than concentration. They're not the same, they're not comparable though, are they? Farming motes is a 1-character job. Concentration is an alt army thing. It's like saying what's better, a car or a football. Like, they're not the same. It's, just tuned in now, the TLDR of the current system. Material ranks are still in there. The TLDR is we've got 2 qualities of materials and commodities. And overall, a lot of the professions seem to be more simplistic. And by simplistic, I mean they've had key components of their professions just like sliced out. Rather than overly... Like, I was expecting simplification to come through the spec trees when it really hasn't. They've just sliced things out. Sunforged is our tier 3 stuff, so Sunblessed is probably the mid-tier stuff. Mid-tier things are using... Okay, so the profession tools are looking to use some of these sterling alloys. Sterling alloys all the way. So, where do we guesstimate dazzling alloys are going to be used? What the hell are sterling alloys? Oh, a dazzling alloy is actually a sterling alloy. Okay, they've got naming issues here already. So what are gloaming alloys going to go into? Are a sterling alloys going to be... Okay, that's going to be weird if sterling alloys end up being for like profession tools and then gloaming alloys end up being for gear or something. That'll put one-time pressure on silver when every crafter gets their profession tools done, but then a permanent strain on tin ore. That's weird. Blacksmithing is feeling very, very not finished, though. Not even remotely. Half of it's not even implemented properly, I feel. And we've still got random shit like this happening. Still saying it needs flipping core alloys randomly. Half the recipes haven't really been implemented properly, even. Early emphasis, once again, on the skinning mats, though. The rare... potentially even daily spawnable skinning mats going into the profession tools. More places that these are being used, the more value that skinners are going to have. Mentioned yesterday in the skinning video that these are looking quite juicy. One single razor stone. Was that because we get one? We get the whetstone to begin with. Razor stone comes in. 45 skill points. Sharpen your mining, herbalism, or skinning tool, increasing finesse for 2 hours. Well, there we go. Default gathering buff. Razor stones. You think having only 2 qualities will make the supply go up way too much? When there were 3 qualities, it was rewarding to sell the higher one for a better price. I'm not convinced that going down to 2 qualities is really going to make any difference at all. Basically because it's realistically quality 1 that they've got rid of which nobody cared about anyway. We're still going to have the same scenario that quality 2 will be the generic one. And, sorry, normal will be the generic one, which was the equivalent of quality 2 today. And high tier ones will be the equivalent of what quality 3 is today. There's more... I don't think the quality is dropping down to 2 is going to make a blind bit of difference at all. We realistically play in a 2 quality world anyway, because quality 1 is just null and void 99% of the time. Quality 1 and quality 2 on most materials are exactly the same price anyway. So, doesn't really make a huge difference in the grand scheme of things, I don't think. It'll be other factors that will make a bigger difference to how things play out. To sharpen the knife work outside of expansion it's from? And does it work on the hunt mobs? No. Well, no, I haven't tested it outside the expansion. But when you mean hunt mobs, do you mean the high value targets, or do you mean... I don't know what you mean by that. What should have been simplified is crafting orders, merging it with the auction house. Yeah, their simplifications are coming in all the wrong places. Is my broad feeling here. The more professions I look at, the more I'm starting to notice they've just sliced key components out of the professions, and then they'll turn around and say, "Well, we simplified things." For me, simplification is taking something and making it easier to use, not just deleting it. Right? Sure, deleting something does mean that there are less components within a profession that you are caring about, thinking about. There are less things to craft. There are less recipes to collect. But that's, to me, not simplification. Getting rid of thaumaturgy is a solution to make thaumaturgy more simplistic, yes. But it's a pretty brutal way of simplifying. It's like getting a splinter in your finger and cutting your hand off. Does it get rid of the splinter? Yes. Is it the best way of doing it? Probably not. Now, obviously, we do have to give a little bit of leeway here for the fact that it's week 1 of alpha. But because of how the spec trees have already been quite well built out for all of the professions, it seems, I doubt that there is any major system being added to any of the professions from this point on. They might, yes, tweak the reagents. They might add an item here, take an item away here, but there's not going to be any major new thing about a profession. Certainly not like a thaumaturgy level thing being added at any point. So I think the core of what we see the professions be on the alpha even today is probably 95% of what they'll be like when the game goes live. It's just going to be like material balancing and like recipe difficulty balancing. Is all I really expect to see being changed. I certainly don't see any dramatic things being changed, at least with the professions I've looked at so far. The sharpen your knife does not work on the high value targets. It will give you a rare hide or scale, yes, but it doesn't multiply the amount of them that you get. That was the first thing I checked. Because yes, like-minded, we thought the same thing. Have you noticed if the motes drop from elemental mobs? Would hate if it's like Dragonflight where bots farmed those spots like crazy and nuked the prices. Well, no, I haven't found any mob that actually drops the motes natively. But B, I haven't really killed that many things. I've not been out in the open. I've only got one zone to test in the alpha right now. So, you know, I've only seen a quarter of the zones. C, they've nerfed how loot drops from mobs anyway. If you hyperspawn mobs and kill them repeatedly too quickly, their loot table magically disappears. Do I need to do a video on this? I've not really talked... I mean, I talk about this a bunch on stream, but I think it's worth its own dedicated video, isn't it? I know Studen's been banging on about it for months at this point, but that's because he, you know, predominantly focuses on farming. But then on the same time, not everybody watches Studen. It's probably worth me doing a small video on it, at least outlining what appears to be happening, and maybe why. Yeah, no thaumaturgy in Midnight. Thaumaturgy's been axed. Skinning has moat nodes, question mark. Check my skinning video or jump in the Discord. The answers are in there. I've not seen anybody mention your theory about recrafting go away yet, as it could also be an interesting video. Yeah, I'm going to put recrafting as a topical individual video outside of a first look thing, because I've not seen it listed anywhere in any profession yet. The only thing that makes me think it's something that they're working on and are going to add back in is because of the alpha content phases here. We're on phase 1 and we've got professions down here. Now there is professions with the tagline of Sparks for phase 5. So I'm wondering if they are squirreling away, rebuilding a recrafting system in order to add it back in later in the day. Presumably when they set up something also for us to test both crafting and using the endgame crafted gear. Maybe this is here deliberately because they're making some actual sizable changes to how crafted gear is crafted. And that might even include recrafting. But at least all I can state from what I've seen so far is that no profession has recrafting. So either they've axed it or they've gone away and are making some changes to it before bringing it back later. But at the moment, I don't know. Mentioned it to my guild, has spawned some good discussion. Yeah, I think the more general player base would be interested to know about that as well. Not just, you know, as profession junkies. Because if recrafting goes away, it does quite dramatically change how guilds and endgame players are going to look at crafting in general. There's no way they axe recrafting. It's integral for any high-end content. I mean, I agree with you. It's a big part of how endgame players play. You know, they probably take their crafted gear from one season to another in the first place. It then maintains its embellishments. It maintains its missives for secondary stats. They throw a few more materials at it, and the guy in their designated crafter in the guild bumps it up to the new item levels, and off they go. If they axe recrafting, you will have to put together an entire new piece of gear rather than get a recraft done. But, as I mentioned earlier in the stream, recrafting has some weird eccentricities about it that have been kind of confusing and annoying. So it could very easily be one of the ways that they're trying to simplify crafting by simply saying that next season you just craft a new piece of gear and your old piece of gear is in the bin. That is arguably simpler. You know, what's the best way to fix a system that's a bit difficult to use? Axe it, apparently. You know, how did they simplify thaumaturgy? They got rid of it. You know, this seems to be the Blizzard way to simplify things. Just cut things out. They're going to have to do some serious work to the recrafting system anyway, because we now only have 2 qualities of materials. So they either choose to just get rid of it completely and save themselves a job, or they have to basically recode and rebuild it anyway. So there was probably a discussion internally to do we just get rid of recrafting? Can we just cut it out completely and then deal with everybody being slightly annoyed that they have to just make a new piece of crafted gear every season? How many people actually did recraft their previous season gear up to new season item levels compared to how many people might have just made a new one anyway? If your embellishment changes, if your secondary stat choices changes, would you have recrafted one or would you have just bought a new one? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question. On retail, you need skill 20 to see the recraft option. But it was still part of your... it's still on your unlearned skill list a lot of the time. I believe most people did recrafts. Okay. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have the answer. This is why it's open for discussion. I don't have the answer. I can only tell you what I see right now. That it's that no profession actually has any reference to recrafting. Ever-burning ignition still a thing? I can't see the spec trees, but there doesn't seem to be an ever-burning ignition system within blacksmithing. No, not that I can see. Spec trees for blacksmithing can probably be sort of looked at via Wowhead. I'm pretty sure they've data mined profession trees. Midnight. Where would they be? They going to be in the profession system. Leveling profession guides 12.0. .2. That's not a 12.0 patch guide at all, is it? The War Within. Tools profession tree calculator. Okay. Craftsmithing. Improve your ability to support your fellow crafters with high quality tools, accessories, and tool stones. Subspecs, subspecs, subspecs. There's no... Okay. Toolbox. Trade tools, trade accessories, tool stones. Trade accessories. It looks like there's an entire tree this time round for creating the profession gear for others. Tool stones, consumable items which temporarily enhance the effectiveness of your profession tools. Those tool stones are going to be your razor stone and your waystone. No? Or is it referring to... Where have they gone? Or is it literally just referring to this? That is your tool stone, right? Okay, an entire tree then for making profession tools. The old ways gain multi-craft resourcefulness, ingenuity, and additional skill when crafting the alloys. In the following bonuses to all blacksmithing crafts per point of knowledge spent in this tree: multi-craft, ingenuity, and resourcefulness. Yeah, they look like they have taken out the ever-burning... Was it calling ever-burning ignition as a system? Seems to have been cut. Okay, so there's just many, many points put in this is the equivalent of that, really. Then you can go into Second Nature, which is going to give you ingenuity. Resourcefulness Smith, which gives you resourcefulness. Prolific Worker, which is going to give you multi-craft. And what's the last one then? Oh, just straight bonus skill when crafting alloys. Cost acuity to craft it, so might be the reason it's been removed. Well, we've got Moxie this time round, which is Midnight's version of Acuity. Alloys, get better alloys, better alloys, better alloys, better alloys. And then, so secondary stats and alloy tree, profession tool tree, armor tree, weapon tree. I guess in that regards, this is sort of simpler. These two are just, what we've basically seen is the ever-burning ignition tree go away, and they've just spread out what was that one big tree that did all of this into two. Armor smithing tree is going to basically be the same jazz. Get good at crafting armor, unlock nodes, large plate, sculpted armor, articulated armor, chest pieces, pants, shield, helms, shoulders, boots, belts, braces, gloves. But there's no difference there with anything. This is just a copy-paste situation. Anything fancy or interesting here? This is how you unlock the... Yeah, you got to unlock the node to unlock the recipe. That armor slot. Your master's hammer gives you 3 repairs. That's the same as what it was before. I'm going to assume that is the same for all of them. Then it's going to be... Ooh, that's... Okay. Lopsided tree. Oh, okay, you can put points into weapon stones. This is a node that was in the combined do blacksmithing thing tree last time, which has been split out into these two. They put the weapon stones in here. But then you've got hafted and blades, then short blades, long blades, maces, axes and pole arms. Basically all the same, isn't it? Basically all the same. Yeah. Master's hammer freely repairs short blades. Yeah, so... Removal of ever-burning ignition. No big boy alloy. No big boy alloy. Just intermediate alloys. And then basic copper alloys. Ingots, even. An entire tree dedicated to doing profession stuff. Because, of course, profession tools are big business for blacksmiths, at least at the beginning. I mean, we didn't look at the PvP set, but this is where the gloaming alloys look to be. Gloaming alloys look to go into PvP stuff, predominantly. That means the tin market, is it Umbral tin? Goes into the gloaming alloys right now. Umbral tin. Umbral tin is going to be more focused via blacksmithing towards PvP gear. Whilst the sterling alloys, or dazzling alloys, whatever they decide to actually call them, come from the silver ore, is more for the profession equipment. See sterling alloys on all of these. But no big boy alloy. No big boy alloy also means there's like no big boy delve material that goes into making that big boy alloy as well. Ever-burning ignition has been carved out. Blacksmith gets a 50% return on concentration, where the other professions get 100% return. I did a little bit of maths earlier with with enchanting. Enchanting doesn't look like it gets 100% return. 50% is default. It can get buffed within the spec trees. But I looked at that specifically. Enchanting doesn't get 100. The So on the old ways tree, blacksmithing, +1 ingenuity to all blacksmithing crafts per point. There is nothing here that increases the refund of... Yeah, there's nothing here that states that it increases the refund up from 50 at all. So yeah. Enchanting is under Spellbound Shatterer. Yeah, but you add the numbers up. They don't reach 100. You get to about an 80% refund is what I worked out with enchanting. Which is, yes, more than 50, but it's also less than 100. I've not looked in that much detail for all the other professions, though. It wasn't generic across the board that all professions got 100% refund in the War Within either, though. I think it was only 2, maybe 3 that did get a full 100% refund, even when fully spec'd. Yeah, okay. So what are my overall thoughts on blacksmithing? Very much a similar sort of system, just frustratingly with some of the flavour of blacksmithing carved out. Ever-burning ignition's gone, no big boy alloy. Spec trees have, well, the ever-burning ignition spec tree has gone because of ever-burning ignition going. And to maintain 4 spec trees, they've just split up what that one big tree previously did. Which is a bit of a neutering of the profession, really. If you don't get 100, the specific spec tree becomes much less interesting. I think in the case of things like enchanting, if you can't get a 100% refund, you are probably just not going to spec towards ingenuity at all. Because you'd probably then be better off specking towards resourcefulness, because procs on the moats are likely to be very lucrative to you. Maybe there was a bit of an argument for a lot of professions in the War Within whether you should spec towards resourcefulness or whether you should spec towards multicraft or ingenuity. Only did you fully hardcore spec into ingenuity with enchanting because you could get ingenuity to 47% and it gave you a 100% refund when it procced. So it would proc 50% of the time and it'd give you all of it back. It was enough to make you go all in on ingenuity. Most other professions, you either didn't get a 100% refund and so you basically ignored it, or even if you did get a 100% refund, because the item could multicraft, you still chose multicraft because multicraft was still more potent. So I think even enchanting is going to be in a position where you may not actually hardcore spec for... You're probably, if it's only a 70-80% refund on a... unless you can stack ingenuity to like nearly 50% again, you're probably going to go full resourcefulness to get as many of the moats back as possible. Because the moats are likely to end up being the thing that's the like high percentage of the cost of crafting that. So if you can get a bunch of moats back, that's, you know... You can get 50% of your moats back or something. Or when resourcefulness procs, you get an average of 30% of the materials back. So if an enchant is using 15 moats, you're looking to set yourself up for maybe 5 moats getting refunded. on a resourcefulness proc, so you might go all in on resourcefulness instead, even if you're using concentration to craft them. Motes equals acuity? No, motes are elemental materials. Did you play Dragonflight? If you played Dragonflight, they're basically the equivalent of Awakened. You get them via empowered herbalism and mining nodes. And it's an elemental type material. It's used widely across all the professions. Volatiles, primals, motes, awakens, rousings, you know, they're all in the same sort of genre of material. Okay, well that was blacksmithing and enchanting looked at. I really should make some notes of these before I get too deep into them. But I've only got 2 more professions to have a bit of a look at, which is tailoring and inscription. So let's see if I can give maybe half an hour to each of these. Before then, I'll have to go away and make some notes. Maybe a first couple of first look videos. It depends on the amount of materials that the craft uses. Best example would be Dracothist craft, which had 300 spores and 50 dust. If you have too much junk mats in the craft, you might end up with worthless resourcefulness procs. Oh, we've effed. We've effed. My OBS has died. YouTube, is YouTube still live, by the way? Can YouTube hear me? Team YouTube? YouTube still seems to be working. Hang on, hang on. Still live, we can hear you. Okay, so I don't know why this happens. I don't know why it disconnects to Twitch, but it still works to YouTube. Hang on, let me. This might kill both of them though. Unfortunately, I might have to reset OBS. Give me a minute. Give me a minute, boys and girls. Okay. Hopefully I was quick enough and everything is saved. Hopefully I was quick enough and nothing actually finished. Is Team YouTube still alive? Saved? Live? Saved? Nice. I don't know why I don't know why loading in killed my internet somehow. Right, we seem to be good. Okay. Nice. Right, let's get this dude some stuff. Options, auto loot, interface, yada yada yada. Yada. Edit mode. Yeah, so I'm going to do tailoring and inscription on this dude. I don't know which one. Let's just go you. Yeah, sure, whatever. I'm not going to actually be playing on the character. I just need buttons on the bars. Sure, you'll do. Right. Do I still want to have 50 enchanting alts? Is there going to be a new favourite? because concentration's not going anywhere. It's going to need to be a topic of discussion for its own dedicated video soon. Because obviously everybody's thinking the exact same thing. The TLDR is I don't really know. Because I don't have, you know, prices to materials to know if there's any added value by using concentration. As a system, systematically, concentration is still here. Theoretically, it will still work in the same way as it, you know, gives you the advantage of making higher quality things out of normal quality materials. But what I will say is its potency seems to be a little bit neutered, because they're clearly trying to make sure that no single... It works really well with enchanting, because enchanting uses a metric fuck ton of materials. And because you can get 100% refunds on concentration, on ingenuity procs, and because you can level enchanting really quickly. All of those things may not necessarily be the same in Midnight. It might very much knock enchanting off top spot, but if is there going to be something else that ends up being better than it? I don't know.
Everything has a price.
But I probably need to come up with a slightly more constructive answer than that before I do a video on it. It's me doing a video saying I don't know isn't very useful to anybody, is it? This is why I want to have a little bit of a look at all of the professions overall. Fuck it, we might even do a tier list of concentration professions in flipping Midnight. We might really go the clickbait YouTube video route, but at the moment, it's the system is still there. There is still the possibility, but it doesn't look as if it's going to be as potent as it is today in the War Within. Milk it while it's hot. Two phrases I'd like to copy from you for my corporate job. The potency is muted, and it takes a fuck ton of materials. Have a way with words. Right, tailoring. 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 Linen bolts. Bright linen. Light and sturdy cloth sourced by tailors from humanoids throughout the Midnight Zones. Well, they've kept that in then. It seems to be that tailors are responsible for their own materials once again. Very quickly leads me to the conclusion that there is no unraveling, as linen goes straight into bolts by the looks of things here, with the aid of vendor materials. That's one step just axed. Nobody cares about bandages. Decor stuff, we'll come to that in a minute. Let's get the fundamentals down first. Imbued bright linen bolts. We take bright linen bolts and we add more vendor mats to them to make them imbued. I would suspect somewhere along the lines we throw some dust in that at some point. That probably needs something else adding to it. Otherwise, that's real boring. We take bright linen and we make bright linen bolts. We take bright linen bolts and we add yet more vendor reagents to them, and we get imbued bright linen bolts. Real boring. We have Arcano weave bolts, which are our cool down cloth again. They've copy pasted this. We take imbued bright linen bolts, add them to Arcano weave. So we do have a new rare cloth. Cloth spun out of mana silk. Tailors can find these on humanoids throughout Midnight Zones and can be bought and sold on the auction house. Arcano weave and Sunfire silk. is clearly the 2 rare gatherable reagents. And these are on a daily cooldown in conjunction with Motes of Light and Motes of Wild magic. No motes go into the basic production. No enchanting mats go into the basic production. So these are very, very, very easily and very carefully mathed out price-wise. Because you're just adding vendor mats to a thing. One imbued bright linen cloth is 2 bright linen bolts. Bright linen bolt costs 1 bright linen. So, so 2 bright linen plus some vendor mats gives you an imbued bolt. That's really dull. Exquisite weaver cloth bolts were big money because they used enchanting mats. And you had the unraveling stage prior to that. That meant that people had to, in the early days, choose to spec into unraveling. You know, it was more involved with doing the whole process. Did they nuke pigments as well, going straight into inks? Inscription is next, so I'll answer that soon. Arcano weave linings and Sunfire silk linings. Take our rare daily crafts plus the basic ones plus embroidery floss. What is this? Sold by tailoring vendors. And more vendor mats into these. I can already see there being near to 0 value in. I mean, these are. Does these have quality? Arcano weave has quality. Okay. Garment crafting. Courtly gear. What's courtly gear? Is this our leveling gear? Yeah. Courtly gear is the leveling gear. Vendor mat plus a vendor mat plus cloth. Using 2 different vendor mats. That's really boring, isn't it? That's going to do something along the lines of create a floor price for these based upon the vendor mats, which will be higher than the vendor value of the item itself to make sure that there's no vendor shuffle available with the cloth. You can see that coming from a mile off. What do these embroidery floss and silver threads cost? Where's the... You're the trainer. Where's the supplies?
What do you seek?
Oh, okay. That's not been figured out yet. That's not been figured out yet. Okay, sure.
Remember the sun well.
So, some of this, probably the cheaper one, I'm going to assume, weirdly, the one that uses the least amount of vendor mats is likely to end up being the one. What do we think? 2 linen bolts, 2 bolts, 2 bolts, 2 bolts, 2 bolts, 3 bolts, 3, 3, 2, 2. We have added 2 and 2. Well, the braces are the absolute cheapest in terms of quantity of materials. So this will be your produce a bunch of it, break it down, There's your... Did enchanting have a shatter? Fuck, I can't remember. Did enchanting have shattering? Yeah. Only for blues, not for epics. Okay, that's the courtly set, and then this is going to be our endgame set, which, much like all endgame gear, hasn't been properly implemented yet. And then we have the specific sets, which then are going to have a 3-set bonus on them, a 2-set bonus. Gain 40 critical strike while above 80. Your healing and damaging spells have a chance to increase your mastery by a bunch. I like these set bonuses, but Blizzard hasn't figured out a way to really incentivize people to use them properly. The only way they can is just make the set bonus like just busted OP. But then they become BIS. It's always a fine balance. I think these set bonus kind of things they should use for like, you do 4 times as much damage whilst doing world quests. Then you'd have people would have an offset for when they're doing world quests. Once they've finished using their sparks for other things. They fight with other embellishments and the tier slots. Yeah. Braces, cloaks, belts, and boots. Less likely to clash with traditional sets. But yes, is also going to wrestle over embellishment slots. It's always the problem. Profession accessories. Not as much as some other professions, but tailors are doing profession accessories again. Alchemy accessory, enchanting accessory, fishing hat, herbalism hat, tailoring robes, and chef's hat. Presumably the exact same range of things actually, again, looking at that. Exactly the same things again. I wonder if in the spec trees, I'll get into, in fact we'll look at the spec trees in a minute once we've had a look at all the crafts. I wonder if they've made the spec trees easier. Really weird with tailoring how you had to spec into helms to get good at these. Do you have some tips for somebody that hasn't played since Dragonflight of what to do? I think mainly to make a lot of alts in the Legion remix. Do exactly what you're doing now, which is pay attention to what's coming and learn from that so that you go into the expansion with more knowledge than the average person. Because whilst you're learning all of this stuff now, there'll be people that will be trying to learn all of this when the game is already live and missing out on opportunities because of that. You're already doing the right thing. We get spell threads again. Permanently increasing intellect by 22 and mana by 3%. A good amount of mats on these, mind. Petrified root. This comes from delves, by the way. Or at least I found this in a delve. This seems to be the only delve mat. Is a petrified root. And I opened a chest and got 3 of them. So, this is the only material I found that I've only found it in the delve so far. But that could just be coincidence. "12 Arcano Weave, 8 bolts, 6 motes, 5 vendor mats, and 6 shards go into one of those." There's enough going on there that these could end up being candidates for concentration, potentially. Because you've got quality in this, you've got quality in this, you've got quality in this. These are on a cooldown. These don't have quality. These don't have quality. But you've at least got 3 areas where they do have quality, and you're looking at 26 materials there. So that's a reasonable multiplier. Times 26 is a good start. Sunfire is intellect by 22 and stamina by 21. Same scenario again, 26 potential quality-based items that could be a candidate for concentration. Then the basic bitch one that nobody will use, that's probably just for leveling, tailoring 35. Oh, this then uses dust. Bags. 38 slot bags incoming. Using a lot of the rare. This will be bags. Always are the sink for quality 1 mats. Big dog is not happy that little dog is lying next to her. Look. Big dog is not happy that little dog is lying next to her. Big dog needs to go for a pee. The little dog is like, why are you whinging, big dog? Let me sit on you. I don't know where dog number 3 is. Good point. Where is dog number 3? Dog number 3 is in the kitchen. If you plan to do multiple alts for professions, they need to be max level. 78 plus is the point to which you can learn midnight professions. Don't we already have 38s? No, I think 36s is what we've got. But 36 slots, bind on equip, throw them on the auction house. GG, well played. No quality in these, which means they're a good use for the low level, or what will be called normal quality. Bolts and silks. Arcano Weave reagent bag goes up to 40 slots. And is... They are not friends at the moment. They are not friends at the moment. 3 doggos in this economy. I love my doggos. Dog 3's getting a Coke. Yeah. Okay, bag again, goes on the auction house. Uses the other materials. The harsh reality time here is that people tend not to care for reagent bags particularly, meaning Arcano Weave is going to be cheaper than Sunfire. Sunfire Silk Bolts will be probably the go-to because they go into making the big bags. That means there's a constant source for them, constant demand for them, I should say. Arcano Weave, not so much. And then basic bags, 38 slot reagent and 36 slot standard bag. These are going to be cheap. These are cheap. Depending on what they decide to be the vendor value of Silverleaf thread. There's not much that's going into imbued bright linen bolts right now. That's like 20 pieces of cloth. 20 pieces of cloth. This fantastic fur will be basically free. These species-specific gathered stuff are never worth anything particularly. Because they're not used in enough places. And they're readily collected already. But these aren't going to be too expensive, these bags, this time around. And then we got the PvP set. using moats and a very small amount of basic bolts. Which, once again, because the moats are used flipping everywhere, 80% of the cost of crafting this will be in these 4 moats. Okay. That's similar, but less. What's Decor saying? Because Decor, early on at least, could be a big sink for rank 1 mats. Sunfight and Arcano Weave, equal quantities of a beanbag. Oh, no, ignore all of this, because these have not had materials attached to them yet. These don't work. Tailoring Decor 4. Yeah, that's clearly finished. Okay, spec trees. Have a look at the spec tree. Wow, that's not implemented yet either, is it? Massive, great big. This is your craft gear tree. This is your craft gear tree. Not expecting anything fancy in this tree other than put lots of points here. Sure. Nimble needlework tree. Aha, we've seen this tree before. This is your bolt cooldown tree. One direction is Arcano Weave, the other direction is Sunfire Silk. Enemies in midnight zones can now drop Arcano Weave. Learn how to make Arcano Weave bolts. Arcano Weave bolts? Did they have bolts? Oh, they did have bolts. Take the Arcano Weave to make the Arcano Weave bolt. And this is the cooldown, okay. Yeah. Less concentration while crafting it. And then you learn a piece of crafted gear at the end. Extra bolts per day. Stack the number up. Bracers. Multi-craft. And then shorten the cooldown. Yeah, this tree is exactly the same, isn't it? Fabric specialist. 1% drop chance to find cloth in midnight zones for every point in this spec tree. How many points is there? 30. 30% bonus drop chance. High quality cloth can now drop in midnight zones. Oh, okay. Well, that's how that works then. I was wondering how cloth gathering was going to work. It's as simple as you need to put 10 points into it and you just magically get high quality cloth. It depends on what ratio this ends up being, but this is going to mean literally 10 points in a profession tree to get high quality cloth. Dropping is going to mean that tailoring cloth is going to be cheap. There's nothing here that's going to hold the price at a decent rate, because you're looking at bright linen bolts. You're going to be able to make high quality bright linen bolts relatively easily because you're going to have good source access of quality 2 bright linen, unless it's like you get 10 of this for every 1 of this. But people will figure out ways to farm the cloth very effectively. They always do. Yeah. High quality cloth drops more often in midnight zone, so you start getting it after you've spent only 10 points. You get it more regularly after you've spent 30 points. Eastern Kingdoms cloth? Oh, okay. That's how they've tried to squeeze more points into this tree then. Gain +1 skill when crafting any midnight tailoring recipe per point in this spec. 1% drop chance per point. The 30% drop chance, high quality drops here. +1 skill when crafting any midnight tailoring recipe per point in this spec. That means this node becomes mandatory whatever you're doing with tailoring. So this tree actually becomes your absolutely must go to tree for everything, right? Yeah, you got 50, 60, 70, 80 points that are basically mandatory whatever you're crafting, because they all give you flat skill. Keyword midnight zones, not instances. Cloth drops more often in Eversong Woods and Zulaman. Cloth drops more often in Rootlands and the Voidlands. Multicraft when crafting midnight recipes. Resourcefulness when crafting midnight recipes. Ingenuity, more flat skill. High quality cloth drops more often in Eversong Woods and Zulaman. Yeah, this is 80 points that every tailor is going to put regardless. Near enough your first 80 points potentially, because of the flat base skill that comes from these two nodes. There's at least 50 skill to be had from here. That means if you want to get really good at making helms, or whatever, you're probably not going to be able to make helms at rank 5 until you've put 50 to 80 points in this tree anyway. You got your 80 points over here, plus you've got your 30, 60, 70, 80 points over here. 160 knowledge points for rank 5 endgame crafting. Season 1 is about the same as what we saw previously. But that's also going to mean that those exact same tailors are also very good whenever they're out in the world getting stuff as well. Whereas in the War Within, I can't say this definitively, but I'm quite sure you didn't have to spec into the tree that gave you all of the cloth. I can't quite remember. Okay, and then fiber arts is gain 1 skill when crafting any midnight tailoring recipe for each point in this sub-spec. Oh, there's another 30 points you have to have then, presumably. There's 30 points in here, 80 points in here, plus the points in your tree. In your first actual armor slot tree. You got to harvest all of the plus flat skill points. What does the rest of the tree do though? In ingenuity, sub-spec, flat skill, sub-spec, resourcefulness, earn a sub-spec, and a 15% crafting speed. Which would be really useful if we were doing unraveling, but oh, maybe not. The crafting speed is going to be far less important, unless they do something stupid like put a 3-second craft time on each bolt. But relax, please. Creative efficiency, multi-craft whilst crafting shit. Multi-craft grants 20% additional goods. Multi-craft, multi-craft. Crafting speed and skill, doing anything. Hey, can you not relax, please? Doggo. Jesus. More multi-craft, more multi-craft. Crafting speed. Ingenuity node, spend 3% less concentration on recipes. Is there any refund, though, on ingenuity procs in here? Spending less is not the same as a refund. Gain 15 ingenuity. No, there's no refund on this. So ingenuity procs are still... Unless there's something that I've missed here. Embroidery, plus 1 skill whilst crafting any midnight tailoring recipe. Depending on how skill affects the crafting of gear, tailors are going to have to put a flipping large amount of points in 3 separate trees in order to be... This is not any form of simplification. Because if you think you take a high-end piece of gear, right, which historically we would assume that you have to get really good at making the helm, say, you've got to get really good at making the helm, which is going to take points in here, points in here, points in here, 30, 60, 70, 80. Then you're going to have to come into Fabric Specialist and get the generic points of plus skill from this one and this one. There's another 80. There's 160. Then you've got to come into Fiber Arts, put 30 points in here, 190, and then another 30 points in here. Yeah. What's that? 220? 220 points needed to min-max guarantee rank 5 in tailoring, potentially. That's quite a high number. The doggos are just being doggos, they're fine. Okay. No unraveling, man. Flipping hell, Paul's hands are full. Tailoring once again. They've not once again, it's a scenario that they've not simplified things I would have expected them to have simplified. It is still going to be just as in, you know, you're still going to need to figure out your spec trees exactly the same way that you have for the past 2 expansions in order to get to the point where you can craft something at max quality. Which is where I was expecting simplifications to happen if they were going to. Quick napkin maths indicates you're still looking at 200 plus knowledge points to make rank 5 items without concentration. Getting rid of unraveling is one step out of the process, but it was that one step in the process that sometimes maybe possibly made tailoring, you know, actually profitable. The avenues for concentration with tailoring appear to be roughly the same, which will likely mean that they will result in roughly the same results, which will be not a lot again. Because the items you're going to look at using concentration on is presumably spell threads, because they're mass producible in high demand. But do they have they do have quality? Is there any indication to what the quality difference is? 22 intellect up to 27. Okay, well, people will want quality 2 there. There's some room for some concentration to go in here to add some value, leaving you the ability to use quality 1 Radiant Shards, Arcano Weave, and Arcano Weave bolts with a 26 times multiplier based upon the amount of materials. But let's say there's an average 100 gold saving by using quality 2. You're looking at about 2,000 gold for the use of concentration. You might get a few crafts. I don't know. It's not looking that different to the War Within, other than they just seem to have shaved things off again. Oh, unraveling. That was not the area I expected them to make things quote-unquote easier. No unraveling, and at least if the materials are anything to be... If the, the imbued bright linen bolts using basically 2 pieces of cloth and a bunch of vendor mats is so much more simplistic that there'll just be no money in it. There'll be no money in it because it's, you know, there's nowhere to add value. Saving grace could be the change to farming. If cloth is actually then kind of rare, it could mean high cloth prices, especially in the beginning. Well, cloth is only the price it is right now for 2 reasons. One, the dark flame cleft or whatever it's called, follow a dungeon. You can clear the first 2 rooms of there, get a whole bunch of cloth, rinse and repeat 50 times an hour. That plus the thaumaturgy is the only reason that cloth really is the price that it is right now. Other than that, there is not that many tailors out in the world getting cloth, which without a follow a dungeon, cheese, farm, and without thaumaturgy producing cloth, there is the possibility that cloth ends up being quite a little bit more expensive, yes. On top of the fact that we've got the new loot rules, the hyper spawns. Have they removed the crafter bags? That's disappointing. They were nice. Yeah, all of the crafter bags are gone again. But the reality was those were very... Some professions had perks that were so dumb you just 100% didn't need them. Yeah. Sliced a lot out of tailoring. Sliced a bunch out. Do you think they'll change it to make it better as beta's closer to the final release? There's not... The thing is with professions these days is that they're so tied into the spec trees that if they added... You know, this is why we might see some reagent changes, we might see an item added, an item taken away, but we're not going to see a whole category of crafts being added in at a later date because they wouldn't they'd need to be referenced in the spec trees already. The spec trees solidify a lot of what they do. They clearly kind of make the spec trees as one of the first things they do. So if there's no information in the spec trees that indicates that something is coming, it's why we won't see thaumaturgy, because they'd have to completely add a new tree for it and all this sort of stuff. That's clearly just not going to happen. We can clearly tell that thaumaturgy's just been axed. And there's no spec tree for unraveling or anything, so we can also clearly quite see that it's 90% that unraveling is just being chopped out as well. I'm not totally of the belief that simplification is just the deletion of key aspects of a profession. That feels like a step backwards to me, but... Can you do cooking and fishing? I will get to cooking and fishing, but they'll probably be last. You think it'll have an effect on potions or flasks? There are apparently no nodes to extend flask time anymore, so now every PvE player and their dog... So not every PvE player and their dog will do alchemy. I don't know. I don't really think that every single raider and mythic plusser having alchemy really made all that much of a difference, honestly, because they probably weren't crafting things and selling things anyway. They literally had alchemy because then they probably had alchemy for the buff, but then were still buying their flasks from the auction house. So I don't think it would have made much of a difference anyway. Too many people complain, sadly, when they try and innovate, and they react to the loudest voices and kill creative expression of professions. I just think that their process to simplification is wrong. Unfortunately. And I was worried about this when I heard the rumors that they were going to simplify things, because I kind of knew from day one that the way that they were going to simplify things was just to cut things out. Cutting things out, sure, means there's less moving components, which is arguably a simplification, but it's an extreme way of doing it. Whereas I think the smarter way to simplify things would have been to maybe homogenize and smush together all the spec trees into one neat and tidy spec tree, maybe with a deterministic amount of knowledge points that could be acquired per season. I think there are lots of cleverer things they could have done to simplify the overall system. Going into a profession and saying, this is too complicated, get rid of it. This is too complicated, get rid of it. Just slicing things out of a profession, I don't think is really going to make people any more interested about the professions. If anything, it makes them less interesting. They were the things that made, blacksmiths having the ever-burning ignition thing is something that it was kind of unique to blacksmithing, and it's something that you could learn, oh, I'm a blacksmith, I do this, and this helps me craft things better. The Thaumaturgy was, yes, quite maths heavy, but for those people that wanted to figure it out, it was a very clever system, plus it balanced a lot of the material prices. Unraveling is one step into making a multi-level process for threads, which means that if you took control of all steps of the process, you stood the chance, vertical integration, you stood the chance of actually being able to spin out bolts relatively profitably. Whereas some in the early days, you would have to spec into unraveling. You'd then have to later maybe spec into combining the bolts together. Then maybe you would spec into the cooldown bolts. And by the time you put all of those pieces of the puzzle together, you would be able to then, that 5% auction house fee saving across all three steps of the process meant that you could do the whole thing and then make a small profit at the end of it. Just chopping chunks out makes it simpler, but it's only going to make the professions even worse from a goal-making perspective. Simplification should have been a user, making it easier for the user to use the systems that are there, not just cutting aspects of them out, is probably my overall take here. Now that I've had a good look at most, we've still got Inscription to go. Now that I've had a good look at most of the professions, every time I'm going into a profession, I'm now looking for what have they taken away. Whereas I feel I should be looking at what are they adding and what are they improving. They're just chopping things out. A single tree that breaks off into 4 branches rather than 4 trees. The spec trees could be done so much better. Like, so much better. Like, you could easily have, right? I didn't really expect to go into paint mode here, but you could easily have, if you want to do it like proper tree form, let's take Dawn crafting for example. Hang on, let's give me a bit of a fatter chonkus brush here. Give me a thick boy brush. I don't flipping know how to use paint. Give me. I don't know. Doing Dawn crafting, right? You basically have one node that could be your prospecting, and it could be like 1 out of 5 ranks. You put 1 point in here, then you go to the next one, and then it could branch out into the next one, and it could branch out into the next one. These could be like 1 of 5s. Prospecting, crushing. You could branch out into rings. You could necks. You could go further up, and then you could go into like gem cut 1, gem cut 2. You could either then put all 5 points, and if you had, you could be 1 out of 100 knowledge points, right? You know that there's 100 knowledge points on offer. You get to place them in the tree wherever you choose to put them. Let's say the entire tree has 300 knowledge points in it. Season 1, you get 100 knowledge points. In Season 2, you get another 100 knowledge points. In Season 3, you get the final 100 knowledge points, meaning that by the end of the expansion, you can technically fill all of them if you want. You make the first 100 easier to catch up once Season 2 launches. Maybe just an unlimited supply of patron orders to catch up this first 100 if you start late in Season 2. And when it comes to specializing, you can either put all of your points in prospecting at the cost of not being able to go further in the one tree, or you just put the 1 point in prospecting because you kind of need to do some prospecting as a Dawn Crafter, but that allows you to move on, and you should be able to, with your first 100, get to the top of the tree and fill a node up here, which could be like, I don't know, your red gems or something. It's all in one tree. It's far more easy to understand. It's straightforward. People know what they're doing. You can come up with this sort of solution pretty quickly and easily without too much like brain ache. But these spec trees, having 4 of them on different tabs, they're all kind of branched off, and there's like 15 different fucking nodes in each one, and this is where simplification should have happened. I love the fact that this is a thing within professions, that there's depth to it, but it's too much. Most people don't want to figure this shit out. Slicing out unraveling, slicing out thaumaturgy, slicing out ever-burning ignition, slicing out key components of the professions that make them feel slightly unique is the wrong way to do it, I think. But anyway, boys and girls, you've probably heard my dog whinging for 20 minutes or so now, claiming she needs to go out for a pee. So I'm going to be a good human being and sort some dog stuff. I will put some first views on this together. I will finish padding out the Discord channels. We've got a few already. Alchemy, Engineering, Skinning, Herb Mining are there. I will do similar ones for the other professions, so that everybody's got a first view of what's going on. And I'll slowly but surely accompany them with some YouTube videos as well. And then we can probably start looking at some more overview. You know, I think it's worth putting in a video on the removal of thaumaturgy. Maybe worth putting together an overall feedback video, highlighting some of these things that, where simplifications have been made, I think they've been made in a less than ideal way. Not having everything on site at a glance refrains from the learning and planification aspects. Yeah, I've thought for a while that the spec trees should all be merged into one. One of the biggest problems for 2 expansions now is that people just cannot get their heads around what points they need in what trees, in what nodes to be able to craft something at high quality. That's literally for 2 expansions. Since the implementation of this system, that's the #1 thing that most people have looked at the professions and it's just gone, oh, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing here. And you're right. Having it in 4 separate tabs, making it so that you have to unlock each one as well before you can even see them properly. You can sort of see them, but, you know, this is where simplification should have happened. But anyway, I'm just regurgitating everything I've said already right now. I'm going to go do some adulting stuff. I'm going to put some stuff together on the Discord and maybe a YouTube video for later today. Thank you very much for joining today. I appreciate it. We had some stream-related hiccups earlier, but, you know, stuff happens. Tomorrow, I don't have a strict plan tomorrow. Depending on how far I get with all of my first views on the professions, there may not be a stream tomorrow. I'm very tempted to take tomorrow as a way to just nestle down and get stuff done, because, of course, on Wednesday we get Remix. And Remix is going to be fun. We're going to be diving in and playing some Remix. I'm hoping to get these first impressions of the professions done by then, because otherwise Remix might take over my life, at least for a few days. And I don't want to end up half-a-jobbing it. So I might take tomorrow to just focus and get shit done, if that makes sense. Yeah, thanks again. Come join in the Discord with the discussions. Anybody that's hit a follow button, a sub button, watched an ad, or engaged in the conversation today, or just lurked in the background. Love you all. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Peace.